Good afternoon. I am Mary O'Dwyer of Mary's Blue Door, and I just wanted to pop on today and continue from last week where we had talked about the physical benefits of transformational breath. So if you haven't already, maybe look at last week's video and review that for the physical benefits. But today I want to focus on the mental and emotional benefits of this work. And they kind of go hand in hand because the way that they heal is kind of takes place at the same time in the session. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about them together. So let's first talk about the emotions. So when I talk about emotions in terms of how it works in transformational breath, I want us to see the emotions as a type of energy, okay? So we have, heavier emotions that are at a lower vibration, at a lower frequency, they feel denser. So those are things like our sadness, our anger, resentments, griefs, depression, all of those things. And then of course we have other emotions that feel a lot lighter, right? Things like peace, joy, happiness, acceptance, contentedness, peace, all of those things feel lighter, right? They're, when you feel those things, you feel like you can skip around, you jump out of bed in the morning and feel good. Whereas when you feel some of those other emotions, we feel physically heavy. I mean, we can feel that heaviness and denseness in our body. So when we think about things in terms of these emotions, in terms of energy, I want to back up a little bit and really talk about how they heal on an energetic way. So I love how Michael Brown in his book, The Presence Process, talks about emotions. He talks about them as energy in motion. And I love that because when we actually think about our emotions and how we feel them, it's often as a wave, right? We talk about that. We felt a wave of emotion. You can feel a belly laugh. A belly laugh starts in your belly and comes all the way up and out. A big cry is like a full body. I mean, we feel it throughout our whole body, right? We'll be racked with sobs. So these emotions truly do move through us, and we don't always think about them in terms of that. Now, we know from Einstein that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. However, it can be transformed. And that's what I get to talk about today and how that works in transformational breath. Because transformational breath is all about transformation. So I always joke with my clients, I hope you read the fine print because expect to transform in some area. So to look at our emotions that we feel and how we process them. We learn very quickly when we're very young children that if we don't want to feel an emotion, all we got to do is hold our breath. And when we hold our breath, it stops that motion of the energy of the feeling dead in its tracks. Like stop, it's going nowhere. And that works so well for us. We decide to do it for the whole rest of our life. So when I discovered this breath work back 5 or 6 years ago, when I was 40 or so, 41, I'd been doing that probably for 40 years. I'd been stopping emotions that I didn't want to feel dead in their tracks simply by holding my breath. Now, when that happens, 2 things occur. The first thing is that emotion now gets trapped somewhere in your body. There's some thoughts out there that there'll be a part of your body that has a matching vibration to that emotion that you were feeling, a matching frequency, and that's where the emotion will be stored. But one way or another, we know it gets stored in our body somewhere. It gets put in a box. We don't want to look at it, so we shove it somewhere, suppress it, repress it, put it there. The second thing that happens is when we hold our breath to stop that emotion, we're tightening our respiratory muscles. Now, we all maybe tighten different muscles. For me, when I do it, I'm just practicing here. I'm like, when I hold my breath, I'm really feeling it in by my rib cage. Those muscles that run along the rib cage, sort of along the sides of my body. So when we do that and we tighten those muscles, we keep tightening them over and over. Think about how many feelings a day that you don't process. Think about how many times you bite your tongue when your boss is saying something, or when your coworker is saying something, or your spouse or your children, and you decide now's not the right time, or that's not appropriate, or I don't want to pick a fight about that. Or we hear things like, let's say we're really upset about, our dog died, but we're at work and it's not really a safe place to feel that. We're going to shove that emotion away and put it in a box and not deal with it. The show must go on, right? We must be strong for others. That's another good one. Somebody that we know is going through something horrible, and even though we may be feeling that too, we feel we have to be strong for them. So we shut it down, we put our emotions in a box. So there's all sorts of different ways that we do it and all sorts of different reasons. So when we tighten our muscles like that, we never generally go back and take time to stretch them out. So over time, as these muscles get tight and tight and tighter, they form little knots, and they get tighter, they get shorter, there's less flexibility in them. So over time, our respiratory capacity actually decreases. So I think I probably talked about this last week, that most of us are only using 20 to 30% of our respiratory capacity. And so one of the things that sets this work, transformational breath, apart from any other breath work out there is that we are looking how you are breathing physically and opening your breath so that you can take the biggest, baddest diaphragmatic breath that you can, and really reversing that patterns that we've had in life so that our respiratory capacity can not just become open, but stay open, okay? So that's kind of how the emotions part of it lines up as far as what I want to talk about in the healing of transformational breath, which I'll talk about the healing in a moment, but I wanted to give you that background. So let's talk a little bit about our beliefs. And this is kind of where the mental part comes in. So when we're young, we form a lot of beliefs, and a lot of them are false, and we form them before we're age 8. I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like 80% are formed by the time we're 8. So that's a lot of beliefs. It might not be 80, it might be 75, but it's somewhere around there. And most of these beliefs are formed with no discernment. It could be as simple as, a classmate tells us, oh, you've got funny hair today. And you might form a belief that you've got funny hair, and you might believe that forever and think that your hair is funny forever. No discernment was applied. Somehow that information, when you received it, resonated, you believed it in the moment and adopted it as a belief. You may have grown up in a house where you heard certain things. Like maybe you heard, money doesn't grow on trees. So guess what? You form a belief that money is scarce. And you take that as gospel. No discernment. There might be lots of evidence to the contrary, but if you kept hearing that, you may, have heard, be quiet, shh, 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 all the time. You may have formed a belief that it's not okay to be you, to be your exuberant self, to be childlike and playful. You may have formed, even though maybe your mother only said shh, shh, shh when she was on the phone or needed to concentrate, but you may have just received it in a way that caused you to form a belief that you can't be yourself, or you can't be loud, or you can't be playful, or whatever. And this is nothing. These beliefs that we adopt, this is not about blaming, the people that took care of us, our parents, anything that was said, because this is just stuff that we have adopted for ourselves for whatever reason, based on how we were, what we heard, how we interpreted it. And the cool thing is you have the choice now to change that, to change those beliefs and to change them on a subconscious level. Because often when we recognize that we have some limiting beliefs, like I recognize that I have some limiting beliefs around my value. I tended to be a people pleaser. I have limiting beliefs around money and abundance. But it's hard to change those things on a conscious level because that belief is so embedded. So that's where the power of working with your subconscious comes in, because you can change it on a subconscious level and then use the actions consciously to reinforce it, and let the conscious work and the subconscious work come together to create a new reality for yourself. So with these limiting beliefs, how these show up in your body, right? So let's say you're a small kid and you're 2 and you lose sight of your mom for 30 seconds in a store. That might be the most traumatic thing that ever happened to you.